Coming up on Forbidden Secrets. The startling secrets about hospitals. What you don't know can kill you. We'll reveal the secrets that will get you out of the hospital alive. Then, she was like many. She walked out and never came back. The secret story of a woman who changed her identity and disappeared. Plus, the horrifying secret that you may not want to know. Discover how spy satellite technology is being used to listen and look at everything you do.
These are potentially open to government snooping.
All this and more when Forbidden Secrets returns.
Have you ever taken a family member to the hospital, or even been there yourself? If so, you may know firsthand how complicated modern healthcare can be, and how a patient can slip through the cracks, sometimes with deadly results. But have no fear, because we're going to show you the secrets to making it out of the hospital alive.
180,000 people a year who die from doctor, hospital, and health facility errors. Nurses are busy, paramedics are busy. Being in the hospital is a frightening experience. Your life may be saved by you.
If you're sick enough, you may hear those dreaded words. You need to go to the hospital. But before you check in, there are a few things you should know. Hospitals aren't quite the centers of healing that you might think. In fact, you may come out with an illness you didn't have when you went in, or worse. Reports indicate that on average there are 180,000 deaths per year caused by hospital errors. 180,000. How are so many people dying in the hands of healthcare professionals? Dr. Sheldon Blau wrote the book, How to Get Out of the Hospital Alive, after a bout with heart trouble gave him a whole new point of view on hospital care.
The chain of events that led to writing the book included 6 hours of open heart surgery, an infection, and a variety of other complications that probably could have been prevented. There are 180,000 people a year who die from doctor, hospital, and health facility errors. And the purpose of the book was to see if I could reduce that number.
Unfortunately, Dr. Blau's experience is not unusual, but his insight into the hospital system is, and his advice may just save your life.
There are some very simple things that patients should know about going into the hospital. The very first thing a patient should do when he is admitted to a hospital floor is to be sure that he's the only person on that floor with his last name. And the reason for that is really very simple. When medications come around, I don't want the nurse to find out which cone the medication has to go to, or which blow it has to go to. If there are 2 blows or 2 cones or 2 mings or 2 of anything else, the patient should insist that he go to another floor.
Having your name above your bed will ensure you get the right medications.
The first thing that you can do is make sure that everyone knows what you're allergic to. So what you must do is list on top of your bed on a piece of tape, allergic to 1, 2, 3, 4. The reason for this is because in the minds of the hospital personnel, the patient who was just discharged is probably still in that bed for a few hours, and that name tag won't be changed probably for a few hours. And not only that, but I have often seen patients who were given medication that were really meant for the patient who was just discharged.
Another good idea is to know what your medications look like, so you can prevent a mix-up. But if this sounds like a lot to remember when you're sick, you're right. That's why Dr. Blau suggests having an advocate with you.
Advocate is keeping you alive while everybody is trying to kill you. What's happened is that while you have had whatever you're going to have in the hospital, you are not mentally, emotionally, or physically in any situation to judge what's going on. Someone comes in and gives you a shot, you don't know what it is. The advocate, on the other hand, should say, what is it that you're giving to my loved one? What is it? Is it an injection of insulin? How much insulin is it? Who ordered the insulin? What is the dose? Nurses are busy, paramedics are busy, nurses' assistants are busy. It's not at all unusual for the patient to get not only the wrong medication, but the wrong dose. The advocate's responsibility is that everything that the doctor wants done to and for the patient are being done to and for the patient appropriately. I might add that when I was hospitalized for 2 weeks, my wife spent 2 weeks in the hospital with me and probably is responsible for my life being saved.
So you know how to prevent mix-ups in your room. But what about surgery? Who's going to be there to speak up for you when you're unconscious? The answer? A pen.
I think what you have to do is you have to label your own parts. Right, do me, okay, right with a red marking pen, right on your leg. Right leg, wrong leg. And also speak to both the anesthesiologist and the doctor. The anesthesiologist will see the patient right before surgery and just say to him, hey, I want you to know this is the right leg or the left leg or the right arm, and label each of your parts with a marking pencil. It'll work.
Once you make it out of surgery in one piece, you may think you're in the clear, but watch out. There's another danger to look out for: nosocomial infection.
Infection, when it occurs in the hospital, is called nosocomial. The hospital and the staff are the source of these infections. The first obvious way is doctors and nurses who don't wash their hands in between patients.
In fact, one study showed that 51% of doctors failed to wash their hands immediately before examining a patient. And not surprisingly, 1 in 10 patients end up with the nosocomial infection. But dirty hands aren't the only thing you have to look out for.
The very common way of spreading infections from doctors to patients is through a stethoscope. Stethoscopes are rarely washed off by the doctor. What we prefer is to use these disposable stethoscope shields for each examination. They stick on here, and after they're used, they're simply removed. So that's one way of preventing this spread of infection.
So if you don't see a protective shield, or a doctor tries to touch you without washing his hands, you should speak up. If you're making a list, the things to remember are: make sure you're the only one on your floor with your last name. Put your name above your bed with a list of your allergies. Know what your medication looks like. Have an advocate to look out for you. Use a pen to mark the right and wrong spot for surgery. And make sure the doctor's hands and his stethoscope are sterile. If you do find yourself in the hospital, you need to look out for yourself. But keep in mind that the staff is only human. So be firm but polite to the people who are taking care of you.
Coming up next on Forbidden Secrets.
The only way to start a new life was to become someone else.
Discover the secret reason why you can't trust that people are who they say they are.
Secrets.
And now, a little secret of life. Do hiccups serve any useful purpose? The answer right after this.
Forbidden secrets.
Do hiccups serve any useful purpose? Well, unlike other bodily sounds one makes on occasion, hiccups serve no known useful function. Some speculate the hiccup may be a primitive reflex whose purpose is now lost. But if you hiccup more than 7 times, you should do something about it. Once a person is trapped in hiccup mode, they typically will hiccup 63 times. The hiccup record, by the way, is 57 years.
Secrets.
Ever had the fantasy of disappearing into a new life with a new identity? If you had the chance, could you walk away from your past forever? Others have. You could too if you dare. Here's the secret way to truly start over.
The only way to start a new life was to become someone else. My life was a mess, and I was sick of it. I still can't believe how easy it really was.
Former investigator for the IRS, Ed Pankow, No secrets only thieves and scoundrels once knew.
Anybody has the right to move, to live a different life, to do whatever they want, as long as it's not done with the intent to commit fraud. And many people do. They just start a whole new life. And they just walk away from whatever family, whatever problems, whatever circumstances have just held them down. And many of them start all over again and, live happily ever after. It's almost impossible to do it in the U.S. But if you go to a country like Belize, like Barbados, like Hungary, or Manila, or the Philippines, anything like that, you can just disappear.
You're probably saying, what's the catch? Sounds too good to be true. Well, for most, it is.
Many of the people that decide to live this kind of life and to just disappear, after a number of years decide they want to go back. It's very difficult for most people to give up their family, their friends, their lifestyle, and all the things that make their life enjoyable.
But not all. We must call her Jane Doe. Like many women, she felt trapped in a life of broken promises and forgotten dreams.
I've seen many cases where younger to middle-aged women in their late 20s to early 40s want out of a bad relationship, want out of a bad life. And they do disappear.
Each time I would start a new relationship or get a new job, I'd always say the same thing, that what's done is done. Forget the past. This is the first day of the rest of your life. But it never did any good. My life was a mess. And I was sick of it. That's when I decided that the only way to start a new life was to become someone else.
If you want to get a new identity here, you walk to your local graveyard and basically find someone that's your same sex, someone approximately your age, and somebody that died before they were 16. This person never got into the public record system. They didn't get a social security card, they didn't get a driver's license, and they didn't get a passport. You now have what's a virgin identity. You can take that identity and create all the new identity with that.
I went to the graveyard and I took a name off of a tombstone. She was born the same year I was, just a baby when she died, a month or two old. When I wrote her name down, I remember feeling like a thief, like I was stealing something. But now, I feel like I'm living the life, a new life for both of us. The one I always wanted, the life she never had. It makes it easier, to do it right this time.
Then all they have to do is write to the state in which that person was born, which is usually the state in which they died, and say, please send me a copy of my birth certificate.
I wrote to the Department of Vital Statistics. 2 weeks later, I received a copy of the birth certificate in the mail.
That birth certificate basically gives you a new life. That document is worth its weight in gold, and you can use that to start all over again.
It was like winning the lottery, maybe even better. It was then that I realized this is really going to work. I had to just keep moving along. I didn't want anyone catching on to what I was doing. I felt as if I was being christened into a new life. I didn't want anyone recognizing me ever and reminding me of who I once was. I don't think I could handle that. I've never felt so good about something in my life. I applied for a social security card. Then I got a new driver's license and a passport. If anyone had questioned me about the work history or anything like that, I was prepared to say that I had grown up out of the country or the records were lost. But surprisingly, no one did. It was a breeze.
Once you establish a new identity, you have to live it. You then become the new identity and you let your old one die. So you have to remember my father's first rule, 3 can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead.
I called my dad to tell him that I love him and I was sorry about stuff. And Yeah, I almost said something. But then he said something stupid, and I could tell he was drunk, so I just hung up. I didn't have much, but what I had, I sold. And I paid off all my credit cards. I didn't want there to be any chance that someone would come looking for me, so I turned it all into cash. The rent was paid up on my apartment, so I just left the key. I've always wondered what they thought happened to me. Did they worry? Not for long, I'm sure.
There was a young girl that was in college. She was wanting to be a teacher, but she got arrested for shoplifting. She could never pursue that career because of that basic criminal conviction. But she got a new identity, she went to another country, and she's now teaching English studies in a college outside the United States, and no one will ever know.
Going through the airport, I remember thinking, oh gosh, what if someone comes up to me and says, hey, aren't you so-and-so? How come you look like that? When I checked in, they asked for my ID, and I handed them my new ID. And it was the first time I said my new name, and it felt so good. That's when I knew it was working. I think the day I left really felt like the first day of the rest of my life. And it was.
Two things you need to know. Applying for government documents under false pretenses is an illegal offense. And if you change your identity as a way to escape from difficulties, any problems you leave behind will only become a burden on someone else.
Coming up next, explore the dark side of the soul. Probe the violent mind of the psychopath. Groundbreaking science unlocks the secret to violent madness. And later, ever get the feeling someone is listening in on your conversations? Watching your every move? Guess what? You may be right. Secret spy satellites invading your privacy. Coming up.
Secrets. And now, a little secret of life. Why are dinner plates round? The answer right after this.
More Forbidden Secrets right after this.
Secrets. Forbidden Secrets.
Why are dinner plates round? Well, the reason for round plates dates back to over 5,000 years, to the invention of the potter's wheel, most likely our oldest machine. Round clay plates were just easier to make than any other shape.
Secrets.
Why are we the only animal who kills for no reason? It's a secret that lies inside a killer's mind.
You could pass a psychopathic person on the street, even a killer, and not really know it.
It's a lack of conscience which creates the violent, antisocial, psychopathic individual.
A blood-drenched tide is rising. Violence and death flood our cities. Our schools and neighborhoods no longer safe, for killers walk among us. They can be anyone, and there's a chance you'll meet one someday.
We can get people who, to the extreme, are cunning, clever, manipulative, they're very charismatic, but they don't care an iota about the victims.
They would look at them as the sheep that are out there, that are pawns in their war against the system.
They have no remorse for the crimes they've committed, and they're motivated by thrill. And that's the classic psychopath.
Most people, at some point in their life, will know of a psychopath that has done them wrong, either burglarized them, robbed them, or maybe killed or harmed a family member.
Why are we the only animal who finds joy in killing our own kind? What forces transform a person into a violent criminal? Questions we are on the threshold of answering. Nature may be red with tooth and claw, but killing in the wild is mercifully swift. A snap of the neck, a savage rip through the jugular, and it's over. Animals exhibit none of the brutality that characterizes human killers, but animal behavior does offer clues to the violence and aggression that plagues society. Animals share common survival instincts with man. The impulse to run from aggression, to kill for food, to stand and fight when attacked. These basic instincts arise from a region of the brain referred to as the reptilian brain. It is the oldest, most primitive part of our brain. In humans, the reptilian brain is surrounded by the frontal cortex. This brain center gives us the ability to create civilizations with laws and science. And science has now discovered the frontal cortex region may hold the secret to mankind's violent nature. Recent advances in technology enable the brains of convicted murderers to be analyzed. It's been found that the frontal cortex is less developed in the brains of violent criminals. It is theorized that individuals with a diminished frontal cortex cannot control emotions arising from the primitive brain center.
We now have the techniques to actually literally look inside the mind of a murderer, to actually look at their brains, look inside the skull, see what's happening here. Is the structure of this brain different in violent offenders?
University of California neuroscientist Adrian Rain is probing the brains of violent criminals.
These brain centers are involved in generating emotions like aggression, fear, rage. So these are the more primitive brain mechanisms that give rise to aggressive feelings. Now, most of us feel aggressive many times during the day, but we don't lash out at people in a violent fashion. Why? Well, we have a good functioning prefrontal cortex, and this part of the brain, the frontal cortex, is involved in regulating and controlling these deeper brain mechanisms that give rise to aggressive feelings. If you have poor functioning of this part of the brain, the emergency brake on behavior, you're more likely to commit violence. The murderers as a group had much poorer functioning of this part of the brain.
Some speculate that individuals with a poor functioning frontal cortex may lack the ability to judge right from wrong, making them the most dangerous of humans, the psychopath.
One significance of the prefrontal cortex is that it's quite likely to be involved at some level in conscience, the sort of feelings that make us not go out and rob a bank or kill someone or commit rape. And if you lack a conscience, you're much more likely to become a psychopath.
You could pass a psychopathic person on the street, even a killer, and not really know it. Although I have met some psychopathic killers who've killed a lot of people who have that so-called reptilian stare, where there's a cold iciness that you feel when you sit with them because you know that there's just nothing there. When you talk with them about the killing, it's as if they're talking about what they had for dinner the night before.
Neurological research coupled with biogenetics has led to speculation that psychopathic traits could be carried in human DNA.
Psychopathy at different points in our history has had some survival value. When there was a lot of war, a lot of strife, a lot of fighting, these kinds of issues going on, the psychopath was the person that could engage in behavior that would ensure the survival of the group to a certain extent, to be able to kill, to be able to harm, to be able to manipulate. Those genes were going to get carried on to form the next generation of human beings.
In times of peace, we lock up psychopaths. In times of war, we send them out to the battlefields.
Perhaps hidden in our DNA are the genetic seeds that spawn the killers who torment society. And violence will always be a curse on mankind.
Coming up next on Forbidden Secrets. Don't look now, but someone could be watching, listening, observing your every move. They're flying high, but snooping low. They're secret spy birds of space. This is one secret they don't want you to know. Plus, psychics.
Someone will betray you.
They're everywhere these days. But how do you tell the fake from the pros?
Is there some trouble?
We'll tell you how you can get the most out of your psychic dollar. Coming up.
Don't be afraid. Fortune told here.
Secrets.
And now, a little secret of life. Does a butterfly sneeze? The answer right after this.
Secrets. Forbidden secrets. Secrets. Forbidden secrets.
Does a butterfly sneeze? No. Butterflies or any insect do not sneeze or cough. In fact, it would be impossible to hear them breathe because they don't have noses. Instead, insects take air in from holes in their body.
Secrets.
Do you use email? How about fax machines or cell phones? I bet you do, because we live in a digital world, a world of electronic communications, a world where nearly every transmitted message can be intercepted by a global spy network. Is the government tapping in? Is there a secret spy system tracking everything we do? Are the satellites pointing at us?
The interception of telephone conversations, faxes, telexes, email, radio, any kind of electronic communication carried over the airwaves, on undersea cables, on telephone wires. All of this is potentially a target for this Echelon program.
Here's the rumor. A global spy system called Echelon is headed by the USA's National Security Agency in conjunction with the UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand governments. Project Echelon system positions listening stations all over the world.
The object of Echelon is to try to pool among the 5 countries their list of areas of interest, which might be a keyword like nuclear material, or anthrax, or cocaine, or bomb. Or it may be a particular email address, or a particular telephone number. And they're looking out of this huge, just ocean of information that is in the air, trying to find those tidbits of information.
The largest listening station of them all is called Menwith Hill, or Spy Station F83. 1,000 American citizens work at Menwith, but the NSA will not release any of the data they receive. It's hard to tell who the agents at Menwith are listening to. Are the American spies listening to your phone calls? Infringing your privacy by circumventing the law?
Because the NSA has no jurisdiction here in the United States to spy directly on American citizens, and the same is true in Britain and other countries, the fear is that various countries are getting each other's intelligence communities to spy on their citizens. So in other words, the National Security Agency would intercept communications of British citizens. The British would do the same with American citizens and then transfer the information back to the respective agencies. That's been the concern about Echelon, is how American citizens, innocent American citizens, are caught up in that web of having their communications intercepted.
There's a reason for all this spying. Oklahoma City, the World Trade Center, the bombing of U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania.
The primary goal is to try to prevent terrorist acts before they can occur. The theory, at least, is to be able to listen to the terrorist talking about and planning the terrorist activity and being able to arrest them before they actually carry out the violent and destructive act. But it is a tantalizing, if elusive, goal to be able to hear the bad guys planning something figuring out who they are, identifying the network, who's the money man, who's the intellectual author of a particular plan, and being able to do all that before they actually can carry it out.
Our agents are only supposed to spy on the other guys, terrorists and the enemy. But the spies have access to millions of messages. Businesses around the world are shouting corporate espionage.
Allegations about the Asia-Pacific Economic Conference, which was held in Seattle some years ago, in which allegedly something like 10,000 telephone conversations of foreign trade negotiators from Asian countries were intercepted and analyzed by the NSA, and then that information was passed back to the Democratic National Committee, which gave it out to U.S. corporations.
Civil rights groups worry that the Echelon's receiving stations are listening in to our private conversations.
The technology is becoming so powerful. Telephone, cell phone, internet, email. These are becoming part of the business and personal lives of a large sector of the population. Anything that's out there, medical information, financial information, personal communications, these are potentially open to government snooping.
There is no hiding place. The hovering satellites are blanketing us.
The coverage of the world is now potentially total. The satellites could be positioned, my understanding is pretty much anywhere in the world, depending upon need.
The information the NSA collects is classified at the highest level. Even our elected congressmen can't get information from the NSA.
But we have a larger problem with these agencies that they don't feel accountable to the American people. They don't feel that they ever have to tell us what they did or what they're doing. And it will always be that way, to the point where records will be destroyed before they'll be released.
We know that Americans have spied on innocent Americans before. John F. Kennedy and his brother Bobby, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. There are whispers saying that some of our political figures were watched. Accounts of Echelon's listening stations tapping into Senator Strom Thurmond's phone conversations have been confirmed by a former Minwith agent.
Well, the right to be left alone, the right to privacy, the right to autonomy in some intimate sphere of our own where the government can't intrude, that's one of our most fundamental rights.
The government denies that a Project Echelon even exists, and listening stations like Minwith are kept under lock and key. Most in the intelligence community would argue that controlling terrorism is worth some invasion to our privacy. But as we have seen, spy satellite systems have moved us one step closer to a global police state.
Coming up next.
Welcome. I've been expecting you.
Professional psychics reveal secrets you can use to find the perfect psychic for you.
If you feel confident, if you feel empowered, that's a good psychic.
Find out where to find a qualified psychic.
If someone is telling you death, doom, or destruction, it may not be the best psychic for you to go to.
Discover how to help your psychic get results.
I would think that it's best to be very open when you're coming to a psychic.
A consumer guide to psychics, next.
Secrets.
And now, a little secret of life. Why are most pencils yellow? The answer right after this.
Secrets. Forbidden secrets. Forbidden secrets.
Why are most pencils yellow? Well, in the 1890s, a company by the name of Kool-Aid marketed yellow pencils. The public discovered the bright yellow color made finding a misplaced pencil a lot easier. This made yellow pencils highly popular.
Secrets.
Since the time of the oracles of ancient Greece, some people have believed in the powers of psychics. It's no different today. In fact, there are more people claiming to have these powers than ever. And if you're one of the millions of believers, how do you know who to trust? Here are the secrets that will help you decide.
Welcome. I've been expecting you.
Finding a psychic or spiritual counselor is like finding an accountant or a dentist.
Destiny is in the car.
Another client of mine has racehorses. I try to tune into which racehorse is going to win.
Is there a secret way to get the most from your psychic? Absolutely.
Don't be afraid. For been told here.
Here's your secret guide to psychics. The notion that a psychic is a gypsy in a tent with a crystal ball is a thing of the past.
I'm really more of an astrologer.
I became a psychic counselor.
A spiritual counselor.
I do readings all over the country.
Not only have psychics gone mainstream, so have their clients. Perhaps you've thought about going to a psychic. A lot of your friends and neighbors already have. Whatever your reasons, you need to find the right one. Astrologer, numerologist, tarot card reader. The selection reflects your personality and needs.
The best way to find a person that's right for you is what interests you. If somebody has a spiritually based question, a spiritual counselor may be better for them. If somebody just wants to do it for entertainment or for fun, a tarot reader or a numerologist may be good for them. Everybody's got their specialties. It depends on what your questions are.
So around this woman there's some...
Tarot is another tool used by many psychics, and it's a fabulous tool.
The psychic doesn't have the answers. The psychic needs something to grasp on to get information. And in this case, it'll be the cards. The center card will tell you what's happening right now in your life. The card that's crossing it is what's on your mind. And then the way the cards are structured, it gives the psychic a way to describe what's going on in the client's life.
Numerology is a study of numbers. Your name is a vibration. It's a pattern of energy. So numerology is a science of physics, looking at the pattern of energy. So every name is an energy pattern like a snowflake.
No matter the technique, every true psychic believes they answer your questions through supernatural means.
A good psychic is going to get information from the divine source. So knowing the meaning of the cards and getting that information and interpreting that and putting it all together is what makes a really good psychic. If I was giving a psychic consumer tip, I would suggest that you find out what specialty the psychic has.
Who is going to a psychic? Well, everyone from Fortune 500 CEOs to your next door neighbor.
My clients range across the board. I've got some young children. I've got very, very well-to-do clients.
Another client of mine has race horses. I try to tune into which racehorse is going to win, or are they going to come second or third.
People need answers, need clues, need hope, need to have a vision that goes just beyond their daily lives and the fear that they may be experiencing.
They look to psychics, I think, for reassurance.
Don't be afraid to ask them about their psychic training or memberships to professional organizations.
I have studied at the London Faculty of Astrological Studies and learned not only astrology, but we learn psychology, we learn astronomy, we learn history, we learn counseling, we go through exams, we have a diploma in the end.
It's a profession. Finding a psychic or spiritual counselor is like finding an accountant or a dentist. Talk to people who are interested, talk to friends. New age bookstores would be good to find referrals.
I think the best place to go today would be the internet. Do a search for intuition, for psychics, for new age. It's just like looking for any kind of professional. Just do your homework.
Ask how they work and let them tell you a little bit about themselves. If you feel good about it, continue. If you don't feel good or if you just don't feel like you have that connection, that means it's just not the right one for you. Another consumer tip is if somebody doesn't know the psychic that they're thinking about using, ask that psychic for referrals. Who has that psychic talked to in the past?
We've all heard the horror stories of unsuspecting people being conned by carnival fortune tellers. How can you tell if your psychic is the real thing or a phony? Listen to what they're saying and what it's costing.
There's different levels of quality. It's kind of like fast food restaurant. You can go to Jack in the Box or you can go to Spago.
No need to fear. A good fortune is coming to you.
There are those people out there who tend to try to just take money from people, and that's what's given psychics a bad name. They go in and instead of helping them grow spiritually, they tell them, oh, there's a dark cloud around you, or you've been cursed by somebody, I'll take it off and give me $600.
Someone will betray you.
Then you go back and it's more, something else needs to be done. Whereas actually I help people do that for themselves, and it doesn't cost extra.
If there's a scam, and sometimes there is, that they get you in very inexpensively, $5 or $10. They're very good at reading you, and then they feed on your fear. So whenever you're having a psychic reading, if someone is telling you death, doom, or destruction, it may not be the best psychic for you to go to.
Another tip, that psychic will pick up the fact that you're feeling angst and use that to manipulate you.
Once you find the right psychic and the right spiritual medium, you'll want to prepare for your visit.
I think that it's best to be very open when you come into a psychic rather than try to test the psychic, because often that doesn't work.
Stay away from fear and emotion when you're talking to a psychic, because it does bring in another energy and it blocks the psychic's reception, so to speak.
To have a really good experience with a psychic, first of all, you have to really trust that person, feel comfortable with that person, and all you have to bring is a very open attitude.
I think the best thing is to come prepared with some questions, to think, what do I want out of the reading?
Questions regarding love, career, and money are good questions for a psychic to elaborate on, although it is better to have a real specific question.
And with career, there's the lady that I was talking about right there, very powerful lady. I will see a lot of things, and a lot of people find that once they've come to me, I've answered their questions before they've even asked them, and then they sometimes have a couple of left questions. But usually that's the most important thing. Know what you want so that you don't go out of the reading feeling like, oh, I didn't get my question answered.
Another consumer tip is having all of your questions written down.
Do your homework, ask questions,
Like when it would happen.
and enter with an open mind.
If you feel confident, if you feel empowered, that's a good psychic.
Thanks for joining us on Forbidden Secrets.
Secrets.
On the next episode of Forbidden Secrets. She had reasons to snoop. She had reasons to spy. She had suspicions that her guy had a secret. From the files of a private investigator.
When you start an investigation, you're going down a trail, and you have to follow that trail wherever it might lead you.
Discover the secret to being your own private eye when we tell the tale of the case of the suspicious spouse.
Secrets.
Just getting through the airport is a safety issue in itself. But what do you need to concern yourself with once you board the plane? Up, up, and away. Learn how you can protect yourself while flying. Plus, he's big, he's hairy, and he gets around on big feet. Bigfoot, is he real?
You don't find bits of hair that are verifiable by DNA. You don't find bones.
Or is he a product of wishful thinking?
It'd be a shame to run into a hungry Bigfoot down here as far as we are into the woods.
Discover the answer when we take to the trail of Bigfoot.
Secrets.